Anyway, so yeah, 15, the study of the 15 and the dose not being a question. So like what was the recruitment based on? What was the like how did the study get conducted?
Yeah, so the recruitment, I really liked this fact. It wasn't people that, largely were, we were honest about what we were studying, but for most people, it was they were in the category of like, not particularly interested in psychedelics, but
Hmm.
more of like they want to quit smoking. They've tried everything but the kitchen sink,
Yeah.
and this sounds like the kitchen sink. And it's like, well, it's Hopkins, so
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh, that sounds like it's safe enough. So,
Yeah.
like, what the hell? Let's give it a shot." Like, most of them were in that category, which I really, you know, I appreciate because it's more of a test,
Yeah.
of, of, yeah, just like a better model of what, if these are approved as medicines,
Yeah.
like what you're going to have the average participant, be like. And so the therapy involves a good amount of non psilocybin sessions, so preparatory sessions, like 8 hours of getting to know the person, like the two people who are going to be their guides or the person in the room with them during the experience. Um, Having these discussions with them where you're both kind of rapport building, just kind of discussing their life, getting to know them, but then also telling them, preparing them about the psilocybin experience. Oh, it could be scary in this sense, but here's how to handle it. Trust, let go, be open. And also during that preparation time, preparing them to quit smoking using really standard bread and butter techniques that can all fall under the label typically of the cognitive behavioral therapy. Just stuff like before you quit, we assign a target quit date ahead of time. You're not just quitting on the fly. And that happens to be the target quit date in our study was the day where they got the first psilocybin dose. But doing things like keeping a smoking diary, like, okay, during the 3 weeks until you quit, every time you smoke a cigarette, just like jot down what you're doing, what you're feeling, what situation, that type of thing. And then having some discussion around that. And then going over the pluses and minuses in their life that smoking kind of comes with and being honest about this is what it does for me. This is why I like it. This is why I don't like it. Preparing for like, what if you do slip, how to handle it. Like, don't dwell in guilt because that leads to more full on relapse, just kind of treat it as a learning experience, that type of thing. Then you have the session day where they come in, they 5 minutes of questionnaires, but pretty much they jump into we touch base with them, and we give them the capsule. It's a serious setting, but a comfortable one. They're in a room that looks more like a living room than like a research lab. We measure their blood pressure, their experience, but kind of minimal, kind of medical vibe to it. And they lay down on a couch, and it's a purposefully an introspective experience. So they're laying on a couch during most of the 5 to 6 hour experience, and they're wearing eye shades, which is a better connotation as a name than blindfold. But like, so they're wearing eye shades, but that's and they're wearing headphones through which music is played. Um, Mostly classical, although we've done some variation of that. I have a paper that was recently accepted, kind of comparing it to more like gongs and
Mm.
harmonic bowls and that type of thing, kind of like sound, kind of
You've also added this to the science and have a paper on the musical accompaniment to the psychedelic experience. That's fascinating.
right. And we found basically that about the same effect, even by a trend, not significant, but a little bit better of an effect, both in terms of subjective experience and long term, whether it helped people quit smoking. Just a little tiny non-significant trend, even favoring the novel playlist with the Tibetan singing bowls and the gongs and all, didgeridoo and all of that. And so anyway, just saying, okay, we can deviate a little bit from this, like what goes back to the 1950s of this method of using classical music as part of this psychedelic therapy. But they're listening to the music and they're not playing DJ in real time. It's like, they're just be the baby. You're not the decision maker for today. Go inward, trust, let go, be open. And pretty much the only interaction like that we're there for is to deal with any anxiety that comes up. So guide is kind of a misnomer in a sense. We're more of a safety net. And so like, tell us if you feel some butterflies so that we can provide reassurance. A hold of their hand can be very powerful. I've had people tell me that was like the thing that really just grounded them.
Can you break apart trust, let go, be open? What, what, so uh, in a sense, how would you describe the experience the intellectual and the emotional approach that people are supposed to take to really let go into the experience.
Yeah. So trust the context, trust the guides, trust the overall institutional context. I see it as layers of like safety, even though it's everything I told you about the relative bodily safety of psilocybin. Nonetheless, we're still getting blood pressure throughout the session, just in case. We have a physician on hand who can respond just in case. We're literally across the street from the emergency department, just in case, all of that,
Privacy is another thing you've talked about, just trusting that and whatever happens is just between you and the people in the study.
Right. And hopefully they've really gotten that by that point deep into the study that like they realize we take that seriously and everything else, and so it's really kind of like a very special role you're playing as a researcher or guide, and hopefully they have your trust. And so, and trust that they could be as emotional, everything from laughter to tears, like that's going to be welcomed. We're not judging them. It's like it's a therapeutic relationship where this is a safe container. It's a safe space.
Safe space.
Has a lot of baggage to that term, but it truly is. It's a safe space for this type of experience, and to let go. So trust, let go. So that relates to the emotional, like you feel like crying, cry. You feel like laughing your ass off, laugh your ass off. It's like all the things actually that sometimes it's more challenging with someone has a large recreational use. Sometimes it's harder for them because people in that context, and understandably so, it's more about holding your shit.
Yeah.
Someone's had a bunch of mushrooms at a party. Maybe they don't want to go into the back room and start crying about these thoughts about the relationship with their mother. And they don't want to be the drama queen or king that bring their friends down because their friends are having an experience too. And so they want to like compose.
And also just the appearance in social settings versus so like prioritizing how you appear to others versus the prioritizing the depth of the experience. And here in the study, you can prioritize the experience.
Right. And it's all about like, you're the astronaut and there's only one astronaut.
Yeah.
We're ground control. And I use this often with,
that's good.
I have a photo of the space shuttle on a plaque in my office. And I kind of often use that as an example. And it's like, we're here for you. Like we're a team, but we have different roles. It's just like, you don't have to like compose yourself. Like you don't have to like be concerned about our safety. Like we're playing these roles today. And like, your job is to go as deep as possible or as far out, whatever your analogy is, like as possible. And we're keeping you safe. And so, and the emotional side is a hard one, because you really want people to, like, if they go into realms of subjectively of despair and sorrow, like cry, like it's okay, and especially if someone's more macho and, you want this to be the place where they can let go. And again, something that they wouldn't or shouldn't do if someone was to theoretically use it in a social setting. And also these other things, like even that you get in those social settings of like, you don't have to like worry about your wallet or being taken advantage, or especially for a woman sexually assaulted by some creep at a concert or something. Cause they're, they're laying down,
There's like a million sources of anxiety that are external versus internal. So you can just focus on your own, like the beautiful thing that's going on in your mind.
And even the cops at that layer, even though it's extremely unlikely for most people that cops would come in and bust them right when, like even at that theoretical, like that 1 in a billion chance, like that might be a real thing psychologically. Yeah. In this context, we even got that covered. Yeah. We've got DEA approval. Yeah. Like this is okay by every level of society that counts, that has the authority. So go deep, trust the setting, trust yourself, let go and be open. So in the experience, and this is all subjective and by analogy, but like if there's a door, open it, go into it. If there's a stairwell, go down it, or a stairway, go up it. If there's a monster in the mind's eye, don't run, approach it, look it in the eye and say, let's talk.
Greet it.
Yeah. What's up? What are you doing here? Let's talk turkey,
Dan Goggins entered the chat. Okay.
Right. It really is that really is a heart of it, this radical courage.
Courage.
People are often struck by that coming out. Like this is heavy lifting. This is hard work. people come out of this exhausted, and it can be extremely, some people say it's the most difficult thing they've done in their life, like choosing to let go on a microsecond by microsecond basis. Everything in their inclination is to say, stop. Sometimes stop this. I don't like this. I didn't know it was going to be like this. This is too much. And Terence McKenna put it this way. It's like comparing to meditation and other techniques. It's like spending years trying to press the accelerator to make something happen. High dose psychedelics is like you're speeding down the mountain in a fully loaded semi truck, and you're charged with not slamming the brake. It's like, let it happen. So it's very difficult, and to engage, always, go further into it and take that radical courage, throughout.
What do they say in self-report? If you can put general words to it, what is their experience like? What do they say it's like? Because these are many people, like you said, that haven't probably read much about psychedelics, or they don't have, like with Joe Rogan, like language or stories to put on it. So this is very raw self-report of experiences. What do they say the experience is like?
Yeah, and some more so than others, because everyone has been exposed at some level or another.
Right.
But some it is pretty superficial, as you're saying. One of the hallmarks of psychedelics is just their variability. So I'm more it's like not the mean, but the standard deviation
Right.
is
Yeah.
so wide that it's like it could be like hellish experiences and just absolutely beautiful and loving experiences, everything in between, and both of those, like, those could be 2 minutes apart from each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes kind of at the same time concurrently. So let's see, there's different ways there were some Jungian psychologists back in the 60s, Masters in Houston, that wrote a really good book, The Varieties of Psychedelic Experience, kind of, which is a play on Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. That they described a perceptual level. And so most people have that, when, whether they're looking at the room without the eye shades on or inside their mind's eye with the eye shades on, colors, sounds, like this. It's a much richer sensorium, which can be very interesting. And then at another level, Masters in Houston called it the psychodynamic level. And I think you could think about it more broadly than that's kind of Jungian, but just the personal psychological level is how I think of it. Like, this is about your life. There's a whole life review. Oftentimes people have thoughts about their childhood, about their relationships, their spouse or partner, their children, their parents, their family of origin, their current family. Like, that stuff comes up a lot, including like the love, just people just like pouring with tears about like how much, like, it hits them so hard how much they love people.
Yeah.
Like, in a way that, for people that, like, they love their family, but like it just hits them so hard that, like, how important this is, and like the magnitude of that love and like what that means in their life. So those are some of the most moving experiences to be present for, is where people, like, it hits home, like what really matters in their life. And then you have this sort of what Masters in Houston called the archetypal realm, which kind of, again, is sort of Jungian with the focus on archetypes, which is interesting. But I think of that more generally as like symbolic level. So just really deep experiences where you do have experiences that seem symbolic of, very much in like, what we know about dreaming and what most people think about dreaming. Like, there's this randomness of things, but sometimes it's pretty clear in retrospect, oh, like, this came up because this thing has been on my mind, recently. So it seems to be, there seems to be this symbolic level. And then they have the last level that they describe as the mystical integral level, and this is where there's lots of terms for it, but transcendental experiences of unity, mystical type effects we often measure. Europeans use a scale that will refer to oceanic boundlessness. This is all pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
This is, like, at some sense, the deepest level of the very sense of self seems to be dissolved, minimized, or expanded such that the boundaries of the self go into, and here I think some of this is just semantics, but whether the self is expanding such that there's no boundary between the self and the rest of the universe, or whether there's no sense of self. Again, might be just semantics, but this radical shift or sense of loss of sense of self or self boundaries. And that's like the most, typically when people have that experience, they'll often report that as being the most remarkable thing. And this is what you don't typically get with MDMA. These deepest levels of the nature of reality itself, the subjectivity and objectivity, just like the seer and the seen become one, and it's a process. And yeah.
And they're able to bring that experience back and be able to describe it.
Yeah, but one of the, to a degree, but one of the hallmarks, going back to William James, of describing a mystical experience is the ineffability. Mm. And so even though it's ineffable, people try as far as they can to describe it. But when you get the real deal, they'll say, and even say that, though they say a lot of helpful things to help you describe the landscape, they'll say, no matter what I say, I'm still not even coming anywhere close to what this was. Like the language is completely failing. And I like to joke that even though it's ineffable, and we're researchers, so we try to F it up by asking them to describe the experience.
I love it. That's a good one.